Hello and welcome to the Jersey Football Chat. It has been a while. It's the first one of the season. Today I am joined by the league leaders management, Gary Tumelty and James Beaumont. How are you both doing? How are you? You're both at the club at the same place. Makes it helpful.
Yeah, COVID restrictions are lifted, so we're a little bit socially distanced here, but yeah, we're doing okay, I think. Preparing for the weekend's games at the moment, so yeah, we're doing well.
Good stuff. Firstly, we'll take it back to last season to start us off. It was a mid-table finish for the first. How did you feel about that? How did you feel the season went?
I think in general, I think when we last spoke, I think we did say at the time it was a development season. We were looking to get the young players sort of familiar with the type of league we're in, the players we're up against, and the competition we're up against. I think last season was much tougher. Obviously, you had all the Bulls players come back in, and was it October time, I think, once COVID bit in, and it changed the makeup of the league. But as I said at the time, we were using it as a development season for the boys and to really get them used to it. And I think that's held us in good stead now. I mean, I wouldn't say we're disappointed with where we finished last season. I think, we definitely could have been better. I think we chucked away three games almost in succession. We chucked away Leeds with 15 minutes to go. I mean, that's a bit frustrating at times, and we probably could have been 6-9 points better off than where we were, which is probably a couple of places. But I think we just have to accept where that's how it happened, and our young players learn from that experience, and I think we're seeing that now.
Yeah, definitely. You've come back and you've started the season very well. How happy are you with the stand? What did you bring anyone in at the start of the season that's really helped with that as well?
Yeah, I'll start off with that because James will probably answer most of it. But the first thing I did was bring in James alongside me, so I'll let him talk more about it. I think, and obviously, we've changed a bit as a club, and we've brought in Sean to take on the reserve team, and that's been great for us just to add a bit more to the coaching team. And I think it's been really positive from our side that the whole development of the club over the last 12 months with who we've added in across the whole board, really. So, I mean, I'll let James answer in a bit more detail about how the season's gone and how he deals with me on a day-to-day basis. So.
I think one of the things that I noticed last season was we would score a lot of goals, but then we concede more goals. So I think one of the main things that I wanted to make sure that we were better off at this season was on the defensive side and being more solid, which I think is showing at the moment. Definitely, sort of change the system a little bit, and we brought in two defenders in Max and Batty, who have pretty much transformed that back line. Both been absolutely superb for us so far. But I think more sort of moving it into this season, I think we started pre-season quite early, had quite a long pre-season, quite a tough pre-season as well, and I think that definitely shows. You can see the boys; they're sharper, they look fit. The majority of the players are now lost in the games through the 90 minutes. But yeah, no, I think this season so far has been good work so far. So
yeah, we also have to be careful as well because we don't want to give too much credit to Tommy and Craig at the Rock Fitness who put us through the paces early doors. So we have to be a bit careful they don't try and steal some of the limelight for how fit the boys are looking. But I think from my point of view, having James alongside me, we've worked together for a few years in the under-18 category. And I really value James's opinion, and he's come up with some ideas. He's talked about the change of shape and given good reasons for it, and it's worked well for us. I think we've adopted a few. We've adopted a different shape, but we've also adopted different tactics within that shape. So if any manager thinks they're going to try and second guess what we're doing, good luck, because we don't really sort of tell the players till the day of the game when we've worked it out a few days before. So if they can work it out, then they can let us know. That'd be great.
Yeah, you kind of touched on signing Charlie Batty. He impressed me last season at St Clements. How big a signing could that be? And he's a big player in the league, I feel, in terms of that left-hand side and the way he gets forward as well.
Yeah, it was James's request, so I'll let him answer it. But he works with me, so I managed to sort of beat him over the line almost. So go on, James.
Yeah. No, I think signing Batty, like I said, has transformed that back line massively. It gives us, we've now got a left-footed, left-sided defender. He gets up and down the line really, really well, fit as anything, and his delivery into the box is superb. So when you're playing the system that we do, he likes to play high, get balls in. It works, and it's been fantastic so far.
And a good thing James and I were talking about as well recently, the depth of our squad this season is bigger. I mean, last season it wasn't. I think that's probably where I was saying we were chucking away points at the end of games, and some of the subs we had, like I said last time, I think they weren't perhaps ready for first team football. Some of them may not be there sort of long term either. So I think this time round we've got the depth of players. So we've got we've had Wilfin at that left side for a good period of time. Will's been brilliant, but again, we've also got Campos playing in a similar position. So we've actually got three, but no two players, or more than two players, have ever been available for the same game. So we've never had the luxury of dropping any of them yet or telling them why. So that's going to come in the not too distant future. But like I said, I think in this league right now, I think when players are losing players for whatever reason, holidays, illnesses, whatever they could be, the depth of our squad now goes down to sort of 20, 21, 22, where we're comfortable fielding these players in the first team, whereas last season you probably weren't in the same boat. And I think the depth of our squad will probably be what sees us for a strong second half of the season, we hope.
Yeah. And you obviously had the strong kind of first half leading up to playing everyone. How pleased are you with that winning streak that you went on? And is there a standout game that kind of jumped out at you as like the best performance of the season so far?
You go for that one, James.
Go on terms of a game that stood out for me this season was the Charity Cup game against Grooville up at the Canavay. I think the boys, the spirit and desire they showed to actually want to progress through that tournament was unbelievable. Considering we were down to 10 men from the first 40 seconds in the game. I think we went 2-0 down in the first half. And yeah, the boys battled incredibly well to get back in. So that for me is the standout game of the season for me so far.
Yeah, I'll probably echo that. Although just to remind James that it's the Wee Cup, not the charity. But I think in that Wee Cup, I think it went 1-0 down in the first minute. We were 2-0 down. Down to 10 men in the first minute, 2-0 down by 15, and we came back into the game and took an extra time penalty. So I think that was 100% has to be the standout performance. But then the following round we went out to St Peter's in probably what was our poorest performance. So. And I think the boys realise that. I think that sometimes you can take it for granted when you're doing well. You think it can be a bit too easy. If you win games on the bounce, just as a mindset for some of the boys. And I think just going out the cup sometimes isn't. It wasn't great, but it's not a bad thing for their mindset just to realise that you are beatable sometimes, and you've got to keep the work rate and the intensity high and the quality high as well.
Definitely. And in terms of the team itself, there's a lot. Like you got Connor, you got Heinze helping out these youngsters coming through. How much does that guide them and help them in terms of their development as well?
I think it's good. I mean, like I said last time, we pretty much talked about the same sort of characters, and I think Heinze, we said he drives all the performance out of the boys like you'd expect him to. He's a grumpy chap when things aren't going well, and he expects everyone to be at the highest level, including himself. So that's been good. Connor, I said, he's quiet on the. You don't hear him when you're off the pitch, but on the pitch he does talk to the boys, and there's a lot of respect for Connor for the way he conducts himself. He's at every training session, he works hard. But I think when you're talking about the mixture of youth and experience, I think even Connor's only sort of 25, 26. So it's not an old squad across the board. So we're talking about experienced players being 26 now, and in my day it was probably in their 30s. But I mean, it's good. I mean, we're probably just, not going to see a huge amount of Carl at the moment. He's with the Bulls for the time being, on the looks of it. So it is where we are. But even in addition to like James said before, Max has been fantastic. And you look at Max, he's an absolute sizable character. No one gets past him. He talks well, communicates well. You look at him, you think he's sort of mid to late 20s. He's only 22 himself, I think. So it is a young squad still, but that young squad is growing in experience week by week at the moment. So
yeah, and just touching back on the way that the likes of Heinze, Connor helped the young lads. Put on Heinze, he was absolutely superb for us and has been superb for us in terms of his work rate, the way that he's actually driving players on. He wants to be the best. He wants the lads to be the best, and that for us has helped us massively. It's a bit of a shame he's with the Bulls, but no, it's one of those things.
Yeah, definitely. We'll move on to talk about the Bulls later, but for now, up to this point, I'm going to put you on the spot. Who's been your standout players? This might get some wound up people in the players in the dressing room. But who's been your standout player so far?
I'm looking at James for this one first. I'll let him upset someone.
For me, I think so far this season, it has to be Ryan Campos. He last season he was playing in centre mid. We pushed him out to wing back, and he's been absolutely superb. Again, very similar to Pat. He loves getting up and down the line, and his delivery of the ball is excellent. I think he's had one game where he knew he was off it, but every other game for us he's been superb. So yeah, for me it's Campos all day.
I'm probably going to name the other 15 players in the squad at this point, because I think we were saying this the other week, actually, in different games, at different stages of games as well, different players have stood out for different reasons. And so far, our league position and results have been a combination of a lot of different players contributing across the board. And, you look at Jay DeSantos, he's at the moment, he typically plays in the 10, in the hole, and, it finds a lot of space, and teams starting to suss him out a little bit now. So, Jay's a lot fitter now. He's doing a lot more work off the ball. He's finding different areas of the pitch. He might drop it deep. He might drop. Jay's varying his game because he's fit at doing it. So that's been good. I mean, we talked about our game against Grooville, and one player just in that game was absolutely sensational. Was Rye. I mean, he was. We took Jay off early on because we felt if we did get into the game, we'd need him at the end, not to sort of hold out the current score. So we took him off and kept Rye on. But I mean, I remember when I was an under-18 manager, and the only time I've ever really seen a performance of one player that's been that good was probably when Sol destroyed us several times, playing for St Peters. So to see Rye do that at a senior level, not at a junior level, for me was just phenomenal. I thought the all-round way he dragged the team forward and got us forward. He was energetic and an absolute pain in the arse for the whole game. And if I was playing football, I probably would have wanted off at half time if I was marking him. I would have said, "Get me out of it." I mean, it was frightening how good he was in that game, and it just shows the progression that Rye's made over the last couple of years. But again, I think the solidity at the back's good. We've got a captain who's pretty solid there. He's always consistent in what he does. And then James is probably going to look at me and say, "Do you remember the goal we conceded at the weekend?" So
he's just too nice.
I mean, I could rattle off virtually every player in the squad at different times. It's every player at some point has contributed. You look at the goals that Cushel scored, and you might look at that, but other people might say his work rate isn't good, and then you look at this or look at that. So look, every player in my eyes has contributed exceptionally well. We're really happy with the squad we have at the moment in terms of the attitude, the behaviours, and then on top of that, it's just even better when they're playing nice football.
Yeah, definitely. And you mentioned a few names there, Kush, right? You've obviously followed them up with them from the 18s to the first team. How good is that to see their development going from probably boys to men going into the men's game?
Probably the reason I do this job, really. It was what I wanted to see as an under-18 manager, is that development. And like I said last time, Stu, I had no particular desire to run a first team, just as a consequence of as a club where we were at the time, and needs must. So for me, it's been fantastic. One player that we haven't really talked about, and probably a player I've had less involvement in their more junior development, is Jack. I mean, and Jack again is I watched him play for the Bulls under 23s the other week at centre back, and we play him in centre midfield a lot of the time, although we can play him there. We know that. He was phenomenal, and Jack's probably the youngest member of that under 23 squad for the Bulls, and as a centre back, he just looked absolutely sheer class. And it's good to see that it's very easy in Jersey because of the competition and the options available to Jersey players, that players don't progress much better than where they are. So for us, it's just finding that level more that they can keep pushing themselves and getting better at. And we aim to do that with what we're doing, and I'm sure they'll find other ways of playing football that will do that as well. So, but exactly that. I mean, our ambition is always to raise our own for our squads where we can, and it's been working for us so far.
Yeah, definitely. We'll touch on the Bulls now. Obviously, there's been a few players, be that with the first team or the under 23s. How happy are you when they do go off, like Hines is gone now? Are you happy that they're joining them, or would you much prefer them to stay with you?
This is edited, yeah, at some point, isn't it? Yeah. Look, it is what it is. I mean, I'm a supporter of the Bulls in terms of the better players in Jersey need a better standard of football, and that has to happen from a Jersey footballing point of view. In terms of where we are with the Bulls now, I think that we could be looking at starting to sort of have a bit of a change, because I could already probably hear the St Paul's hierarchy sort of probably shouting at me down the phone. But I think that after their setup, it was always going to impact a club or clubs that were going to be stripped of their players that were going to go up to the standard. And unfortunately, one particular club had more than most. I think now that's in and it's settled, I think what we need to try and manage throughout the course of the season is a minimal disruption to clubs across the board. And people might say, right, you're top of the league, it's affecting you. But you only have to look at these, the centre of excellence selections for this year, and you'll see a number of clubs in there. St Peter's, of course, you see a lot of Trinity in there, you see a few from Brewville. At some point, it will become everyone's issue. As your team, if your team is in the top 2 or 3 in that Premiership, you're going to be looked at more from the Bulls side of it, because they're going to want the better players in Jersey. It's just natural that they're going to do that. But what we need to do is minimise the disruption that happens. For example, we might get into this time of season, November, December, January, where injuries bite, suspensions bite, and people may not always be available for whatever reason. And I think that, for example, you might say, and I'll just pick names out of a hat here and say, right, okay, I know Lorne could be one because I've seen he's got exams. It was in the paper the other day. And say, for example, Ruben gets suspended, then they might call up Jay and Carl, for example. So then you'll end up with 2 better players from the Bulls dropping back into their club, but 2 players from one club going out. And it just moves the balance a lot. And I think as clubs over time might not be open to so much variance in a season that will affect them, because we'll do a lot of hard work with our players. And that's from a mini age group as well, not just the seniors. We bring them through the club, we settle them down. We want to expose them to better standard of football, but it has to be reasonable in conjunction with what we're trying to achieve, because we can't plan in June to have a half-our squad stripped in December, for example. And it hasn't happened yet, and it may never happen. And we just need to be careful that it doesn't. And I'm sure the Bulls will also appreciate that they need to manage them carefully. Gary's a good guy. I speak to him periodically here and there, most likely when he wants players, but we do speak occasionally. And I think we just have to be sensible all around that, the credibility of Jersey football needs to maintain. And we can't have a team, for example, might be top at Christmas and doing well, yet 4 or 5 players could potentially go at some point, and you go, right, that team end up finishing mid-table and the balance is moved out of no control of their own clubs. So I think it'd be interesting. I think there's discussion to be had probably towards the end of the season on that. Don't you want to add anything, James?
No, I'm not going to add anything to
that. For the under-23s as well, on a slightly more positive note, it's given opportunities for people like Wilf, for example. He's gone away with them, or he's played here with them and gone away. How good an opportunity is that? And it doesn't clash with first team games as well, for them to play against these different players as well.
Yeah, I think it is, and it's great. I mean, like I said, watching Jack playing the other week, and Jay and Ryan have been involved in it as well. It's been great, and then obviously you're now getting the other players in your squad who fall into that category being involved too. Wilf's a bit of an unknown to a lot of people, so I think he probably isn't now that he's been screaming and shouting about a goal he scored for the Bulls under 23s the other week. I don't think we've heard the end of it, and I think we're going to hear that for a long time. But again, it is great, and I think a similar thing. Paul Renton phoned me yesterday. We talked through a couple of scenarios. Our under-18s have a game at the end of the month in the cup, and they've got a game the same day. And can Jack play or not? And and we're pretty open about it. And as a club, it's a brave move sometimes, but we turned around and said take Jack. And the reason is what's more beneficial to Jack being a 17-year-old good young footballer coming through the system right now? Is it more beneficial to play against Portuguese reserves for an under-18 team? And their under-18 team are okay. They're not great, but they're good. They'll be in a sort of fourth or fifth in that league. But is it beneficial to be playing balls under 23s against better opposition that day? And I think with someone like Jack will play every minute of every day that you give him the football, and that is just the nature of the young man that we've got. And I think sometimes you need to direct him to play the standard of football that is suitable for him. And And it's a bit more quality over quantity, I think we need for some players, because, you know, they will play some, you have a mix of players, right? And some players will have a niggle and they'll come off at the first sight of a niggle. And some players will, a bit like Terry Butcher, be pouring with blood and things everywhere, and they'll still want to play football. And Jack's probably Terry Butcher, although he's, you know, won't thank me for comparing him to an Englishman. So I think it's that thing really, Dan. I mean, I think, you know, we want to support our good young players doing what they do, and, you know, we will work with them on that basis as well. We're open with them about it. You know, the first thing I did after that was, you know, after training on Tuesday, was speak to Jack about, you know, to an extent explaining that we didn't have to give permission, but we have, because we think it's beneficial for him to do it. So he understands that, you know, as a club we're allowing it, and we're on good terms. You ask a player, he will tell you he wants to play St Clements, no doubt.
Definitely. We'll part the Bulls. Talking about other teams in the league, you've played 7 out of the 9. Who's kind of stood out for you in terms of teams or individuals that you come across?
We played 7 out of 8, right? Because we can't play ourselves.
So, yeah, 7 out of 8. My bad. Yeah.
I'll let James go with this one, because he's got a list of players that he likes.
It's tough. It's tough to choose just one person out of the league, but I think I've watched probably more of Grooville, and we've seen more of Grooville than anybody else this season. For me, I think Harrison Moon. I think every time I've seen him, he's been fantastic. He works hard. He scores goals. So yeah, for me, he would be the one that I would say has impressed me the most from an opposition team at the moment.
Definitely.
I think from my point of view, I'm probably going to stick with the same team, to be honest with you. And it's you know, I think we've had 3 very, very competitive battles against Grooville, and we really enjoy those battles. You know, Dave really organises his teams quite well to come and fight with us. So you know, we're always up for the challenge. But I think Robert Martin's Figueroa, for me, I think really stood out when we played against him. Really good, tidy player, energetic up and down, particularly in the left flank where he plays for them. So, but yeah, very much a live wire young lad, and I think we want to watch in Jersey football.
Yeah, good shouts, definitely good shouts. In terms of St Clements, is it too early to talk about going to win the league, or is that a definite goal for you guys?
Too early. Too early.
We're all saying it's too early. Of course, it's too early. Look, I think when you get to the halfway point, and I think we've got one game to the halfway point with a 5-point lead, I think it's safe to say we're going to be top at the halfway point. It's hard for people. I mean, a lot of people talk to me about it. I did tell our players that no team's ever won a league after 5 or 6 games, so don't even start talking about it. And then one of our players reminded me that in the under-18 league that was void that season, we actually won the league after about the same amount of games. So, but it is one of those, Dan. I think, you know, we started off the season, we take one game at a time, and you know, start with a win. And then we've continued on that mindset. I think from our perspective, it's just continue on that program. You know, the pressure does start to build, and people do start to talk about it a lot. And you know, this club has never won that trophy before. In fact, I don't think it's ever finished above 4th in the league. So for us to be in this position now is great. I think it's all down to the hard work that we've put in as a management team and organised ourselves this year. And the players have delivered everything we've asked for them so far on a football pitch. And I think if that continues, then, you know, we'll be there or thereabouts at the end of the season, and you know, we'll talk about potentially winning leagues in 3 or 4 more games time, and when we're a bit further down the line. But I don't want to get carried away with ourselves right now. There's still a lot to play for. There's a lot that can change. You know, you just can't. You just can't see how Jersey football changes so much, and unless you come and watch it week in, week out. It could be based on various factors of amateur players, injuries, suspensions, holidays, people randomly booking holidays for all sorts of things, or booking lunches on a Saturday afternoon with friends, and you know, suddenly, you know, you're 3 or 4 players down. And, you know, it's tough. I mean, you know, refereeing decisions are another one. We've lost a few to suspensions. Some will feel very questionable. You know, but at the end of the day, I think it's these sort of factors over the course of the season, and I think James and I are comfortable that the 11 we put out every week are good, and the 11 behind them are pushing and pushing and pushing. And you know, the boys were in the gym yesterday. You know, we did Tuesday night outdoors at Hope Valley, and we did Wednesday night in the Rock. And the boys are turning up in their numbers, and the intensity's high, the pressure's good. They're all fighting each other for their places, but the atmosphere throughout it all is really, really positive. They're all supporting each other. keeping them all happy is, I'd say, it's going to be a challenge, but it hasn't been yet. They're all generally happy guys. So I think onwards and upwards, and if we continue this, then it's going to be, you know, a good season for us in terms of our overall history on finishing at no higher than fourth. So
yeah, I think, you know, with the squad, you look at our say our starting 11, for example. I think you look at the players behind that. There's still quality there. I think the depth is helping massively. That Gary touched on it before. You know, when you look at the depth from last season, it wasn't anything like what we've got currently. So I think that is a major factor. And you know, if you're a centre half down here at the moment, every week you're fighting for your spot. We've got about 20 of them, all wanting to play in that first team. And to be fair, they're all good enough to play in that first team as well. So it is a case of perform well, train well, the spot's yours. If you have a bad week, your spot's up for grabs. And the players know it. The attitude's been excellent in training because of the depth in squad and everybody wanting to push on. So, and I think that's something that we've not really had before. Well, certainly since I've been down at the club. Yeah. We've not had the strength and depth like we do now, and players really wanting to push each other. So I think it's a big factor in why performances are where they are as well at the moment. So
I think as well, Dan, I think one thing that's really helped this year as well, I mean, last season was a big challenge. Both James and I were running individual teams by ourselves. And it was, I'd pretty much say it was a lonely world for us on a Saturday afternoon at our different locations around the island. So, you know, to be able to work together and bounce off each other, I mean, it's been great this year just to have that, you know, support. You know, I always want to work with people on a 50-50 basis, and James puts his input in quite substantially. And you know, we don't always agree all the time, but he's come up with some cracking decisions this season that I've never seen, and I've gone, okay, that makes sense. And you know, if he supports it with good rationale, then he's got my ears, and he's done that pretty well this season. I think that's really been an added dimension to us this season, just being able to have the extra support around. I mean, there is nothing worse sometimes than trying to do a warm up, do your team sheets, and everything else is going on around you. Just to have someone else with you that's just taking a bit of pressure off each other. It allows you to think more clearly when things are going on. And I think the decision making between us, you know, sometimes it's a struggle. We bash our heads together coming up with scenarios, and some of it has been who's our fifth sub, because we've got so many people that we can take on a game these days who are good enough. And it's about not wanting to let people down. Is that person playing game time in the reserves, or aren't they? You know, and over time, I think our reserves will be strong enough. And I think, you know, there's players in our reserves now who are wanting first team football. They're 18, 19, 20, 21. And James and I don't think they're going to go anywhere in the short term. You know, these boys have got plenty of time in their footballing careers to get there. And, you know, we'll keep supporting them as much as they want to keep working. So it's the way we are.
Yeah, definitely. The reserves team, I went to see them Saturday, just gone. They're a good team. They gave Portuguese United a proper good game, and it shows that development to go into the Premiership as well is good.
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. And I think the reserves they're probably a couple light across the board, I think. You know, I think they probably could do with a couple more players just to make them a little bit more solid, a bit more consistent. They've got some good players in there. And I think, you know, they use young Noah Trent at the weekend. I think, you know, young Noah's got sort of good history. He was, you know, trialist at Beaumont in his younger days. So, you know, we're training up with us in the first team, and we may bring him into the squad this weekend. So just another continual development of another young player for us. So, you know, he's certainly a frightening talent when he gets going. It's just sometimes with these young lads, just getting them going. So that's the way it is. So,
yeah, definitely. Right. Yeah. Brilliant. Thanks for both coming on. It's been great to chat. Covered a lot of different subjects. And good luck for the rest of the season as well.
Cheers, mate.
Great. Thanks, Dan. All the best, mate.